Paul, this is Global Digest think tank group. You may know that we are podcasting different topics from around the world. So in order to know better, why don't you introduce to our audience yourself and your organization? Please, Paul.
Thank you, John. My name is Paul Turner. I work for a small nonprofit called the Fund for Peace. We're a think tank that also implements a number of different peace building projects. We've been around for close to 70 years and have worked in more than 55 countries. And just myself, before I came to the Fund for Peace, I've worked with both kind of implementers for foreign assistance projects for primarily the U.S. government, but also some with the UN, et cetera. And then have worked as well with the U.S. government, with both the U.S. Agency for International Development as well as the U.S. Department of State. That was part of what had me in Myanmar to start. I was there working on both the peace process as well as in Rakhine State in 2012, and have been really fortunate to have had a career that's allowed me to see and experience a number of different places. I've deployed to about 50 different countries in my own work and done research on another 50 on top of that. So I tried to manage expectations by sharing that I don't know a lot about anything, but I know a little about a lot. And that ability to draw lessons about successes and challenges or failures from one country to the next, whether it's my own or another place that I may have lived or worked in, has been really beneficial over time.
So Paul, you said you've been to Myanmar, right? So how many times you've been to Myanmar? Or are you still working right now in any project in Myanmar?
So I went there for a deployment to support the U.S. Embassy there, and was based both in Yangon and Sitwe for about half a year. And right now, we're not currently operating or implementing in Myanmar, but it is something that the Fund for Peace does research on. We have two seminal products. One's called the Fragile States Index, and the other is called the State Resilience Index. And sadly enough, this past year, Myanmar was one of the countries that fell sharpest on our Fragile States Index, which means that the levels of fragility have increased at a pace faster than most of the rest of the world.
Yes, I agree. For myself, I consider Burma is a failed state because current military regime or opposition group, neither group will properly control the country and cannot protect and prevent civilians, neither group. Military barely control the capital and a big city, and they are not able to protect civilian, and they are far away to reach the countryside and beyond 500 miles, they are out of control. You know, everywhere is rebellions and conflicts with the local civil military. They fight for democracy. After military coup, a lot of local fighters emerge across the country. So it is a failed state, and as well as the opposition group also cannot control and cannot hold any position or any city or any state. They still not able to control. They just are making, loosely alliance the civilians, democracy fighter. They just ambushing, but they cannot also control, without any assistance from international community, without any weapon assistance, with their own local made weapon. It is far away to grab the city or the whole country administration by opposition as well. So definitely I consider Burma is failed state, but many people maybe not consider. Some people consider failed state, but many people still not consider Burma as a failed state. So it is a lot of argument between different, analysis. So I consider a failed state. You can also do your project as a failed state. I fully support for that, and I want you to your organization can also to promote Burma more, democratization. My organization we are promoting liberal democracy, and we are, more, especially in Burma, there are strong left-wing group, including military government, and even in democracy party, even in NLD party, majority are ideologically, they are left-wing. They did not align with the liberal idea or right wings. Most liberal country in Western country, developed country are liberal country, So my organization arguing, we have to make sure our position should be clear standing, whether you stand for liberal or you just unclear democracy. Eventually it become fail, because Burma democracy easily fail because their position is not clear. Some people are willing to go back with military, and some people want to stay in democracy. A lot of activists, even, I've been telling many times, even very high level NLD members and even 88 protest leader, they don't have clear digested about politics, liberal democracy, or clear democracy. So my organization is clearly, we said we will stand for liberal democracy. We cannot have any concession or any, negotiation about our ideology. Whether you like, you can join with us. If you don't want, we don't have any, in the middle ground, or to support left wing or to support socialism or such thing. We will never engage. Our position is clear. That is, we are advocating in Burma about liberal democracy. Are you also working for USA, or how did you collaboration with USA for?
So the organization that I work with now, the Fund for Peace, we receive grants and financial support from a number of different entities. So some of it is bilateral, whether it's the US government, the EU. We're in early conversations with the Japanese, so like a number of different bilateral donors. We work with multilateral donors too, like the UN, for example. We work some with the development finance institutions, so whether that's the Islamic Development Bank, the African Development Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, etc. And then we work with both the foundations and private sector as well. So the longest work that we've done with the private sector has been in the Niger Delta, where we've had a partnership with Chevron in standing up a local civil society organization to promote peace building through early warning and response capabilities that was set up kind of at the subnational level in order to bring stability to that region.
So you get some kind of grant from USA, right?
That's right.
I don't know, but if USA still has any project in Burma right now, or how's the US any grant or aid inside Burma? I think amount of grant is, they reduce a lot compared to previous democracy government, isn't it?
That's right. I believe they've really scaled back most of their programming. I think there's still one or two active projects that are there. You do see quite a bit of humanitarian assistance still coming though through USAID. And that is probably where the vast majority of the funding is going right now.
I'm not sure you have any idea about U.S. assistance to Burma, especially humanitarian aid. It's channeling through military government or through opposition, or how the fund is channeling inside Burma.
I don't have the specifics. I'm happy to kind of get back to you on that if that will be helpful. But I do know that generally the way that the US government tends to operate is they look to try and do direct distribution in order to help decrease the risks of corruption. However, in some locations, and I know when I was in Rakhine, there was still some funding that was having to go through the government because there was no other option as to how to distribute it. So when there's simply no other access, or governments refuse to provide access to people that are in desperate need, then sometimes the US government will work in partnership, even with those where there's significant or severe policy disagreements.
Yeah, it's a bit complicated, you know. If we consider it's a failed state, the question is why we have to work with military regime, which barely control the country, and it can never. They don't have a political will, or they don't have never interest to work for civilian, especially humanitarian. They are never a good record about helping civilian, you know. All this
Right.
usually sometimes they took humanitarian aid or international assistance for their own military personnel. They provided to their own soldier and surrounding them, not really given to the, you know, disaster affected or victim in the country. There are many cases. So I don't think the U.S. government is not that blind, but sometimes many disagreement and conflict idea, they still engage with military government, or is U.S. embassy is dealing with those things, or I don't know how much capacity of embassy position to deal such kind of channeling humanitarian aid, because they also under, if military government, they cannot move that much, you know.
Right. Well, I certainly am not in a position to offer official U.S. Policy positions, but I can share, you know, that there are lots of places that are also in really challenging situations. For example, North Korea, where humanitarian assistance is still provided, and there are really creative ways to work with local and international partners to ensure that that assistance is going to the people and not to government regimes where there's not an alignment of ideologies.
Of course, North Korea is also corrupt. They definitely they will not spend, or they use the humanitarian aid for civilian. Definitely they will use for their own regime and military mainly. But North Korea case is slightly different from Burma. You know, North Korea
Very
has
different.
limited, and the whole country is locked down. You know, there is no access from anywhere. So there's only one access from the regime. But in case of Burma, there are many options. The international community can access Burmese civilian and the victim from different direction from Eastern border, Thailand border, or China border, Laos border, Western Indian border, Bangladesh border. Even if there is a will, American can send a ship or aircraft carrier for humanitarian aid from the sea. They can still supply the aid to the coastline of Burma, very long coastal, Burma has very long coastal. They can
Right.
send it to the coastal, not necessary to engage with military regime. From the sea, they can even directly supply to the coastal villages and the village. Rakhine State is definitely coastal area, They can send by ship. That is not difficult. Even they can do directly by US Marine or something like that. I don't know. They consider that much option to do such kind of, a little bit. Uh, it will make a little bit busy, but it will be more effective. I don't know. Is there anybody willing to do a little bit busy work, or they hesitate to do such kind of multi-option to use for effective way? I'm not sure because everybody busy for their own, job,
Right. I think part of the problem, if you draw the military into the humanitarian assistance realm, one is they're not necessarily trained to perform there, and so it requires a lot of coordination from the humanitarian assistance professionals. But the other is, if, for example, you were to draw, significant naval forces toward the coast in order to ensure safe delivery, that's actually intentionally or unintentionally an act of aggression, and would escalate tensions, potentially opening the doors for an armed international conflict, which I don't think that the United States is considering right now. I may be wrong. Like I said, I'm not in those policy conversations, but I think that the military is often asked to be and invited to be part of humanitarian assistance operations by host nation governments. For example, after some of the major cyclones and typhoons that have happened out in the Pacific, I know the U.S. military has gotten involved at the request of the government. But generally, they will not help serve to be a delivery mechanism for humanitarian assistance, because as a military entity, even though they have the resources perhaps to get the assistance in place, the symbolism and the way that can be interpreted is often as an act of aggression.
Yes, I agree some of your argument. It is potential risky for as U.S. government side, but I mean there are more options. As if U.S. government is considered it is a failed state, there is no government at all.
That's right.
They have to, they have to erase government to government relation. That program should be, that channel should be stopped. They should not think about that. They should forget about government to government, don't care about military government, or if they don't consider opposition group as capacity to government, so they have to forget it, either one, because nobody control and nobody properly control the government. They cannot protect and they cannot prevent civilian either group. So they can ignore both of them. And then second option is US should engage, people to people, track to people, like that you are NGO, that is a people to people NGO and civil society and other individual. That is an option for US. So US can just let the people to people channel and delivery system they should give all the grant and fund to the people to people, the track to the diplomacy. So a lot of NGO and private sector individual can do channeling assistance. It's not necessary to it will not damage about government image because it's not done government to government. It's by people to people. So it can be go through directly with U.S. civil society or join together with Burmese civil society or any regional civil society, as long as people to people, you can engage with multiple civil society. The main purpose is to reach U.S. assistance to the Burmese civilian, the victims. So this is the channel. But the thing is, I'm not sure if it has willingness to do more effective way or more new strategy, new idea. They don't want to, I think they are not ready to get into the such kind of new idea or new innovation delivering system or channel or something. I'm doubt about U.S. Government willingness.
But I was really struck when you were just sharing kind of the challenges of working with a failed state, and I wonder if both in order to support the Burmese people as well as looking to change some of the what I see as scary trajectories that we are looking at globally, if there might be an opportunity for the U.S. in partnership with Russia and China, who've been involved in the country as well, to see if they could broker a relationship that's similar to the one that has struggled in North Korea, but to really try and serve to push the government into opening up and into stepping away from the armed conflict into reforms and toward a government that's more representative of the people. It would be a really interesting experiment. I don't see much of a willingness kind of in the great powers right now, or however you'd like to refer to that group, to take that on. But I wonder if you did have that pressure being exerted. I know that the junta there in Naypyidaw has been very resistant to international pressure. But I think if there were to be a unified series of engagements that would come, from across the political spectrum, what success that may have, I doubt. I'm certain it wouldn't be immediate, but I wonder if over time, if they might be able to have some engagement. But the other part that you were sharing around the support to people, I think is really key. I know one of the things that the U.S. and other donors do that can be a really helpful first step is really trying to find ways that you can work with people in country, and if you can't get access to people in country, to work with the diaspora to try and find ways to provide just simple information as to what's actually taking place, and to work kind of in the media landscape. So most places that's not kind of traditional media, but it ends up going through the internet or social media platforms, and using that as a way to have kind of those first efforts to reach out to people, in whatever languages they speak, and to really help shine a light on the challenges that they're facing, so that they have the information at their disposal and are able to make better and more informed decisions. And then if possible, what I've seen happen in a number of countries is that then allows for coalitions to take place. And I was really impressed when I was there, despite kind of decades of hardships, that there is a fairly vibrant degree of interaction kind of within cultures and communities, whether that's driven by civil society, which you see take place in some of the primary and secondary cities, or whether that's driven through religious communities, which you might see taking place in some of the more remote and rural areas. Trying to find ways in that people-to-people programming that you're able to kind of connect to some of that existing, social infrastructure, for lack of a better way of putting it, that soft infrastructure that allows those connections, that gives the access, that has the influence to be able to bring people together around ideas. So whether those are ideas around how to meet basic needs, whether those are ideas around how to organize and more effectively advocate, or how to plan and think about the future. I think that those types of initiatives can be really helpful in some of these spaces. And I don't tend to get too hung up on labels, but whether they're failed or fragile or transitioning or whatever the case may be, I think trying to look at ways that you can build those bridges, to be able to support people that are in environments that are really struggling, that are really facing a lot of challenges, whether those are kind of challenges through direct physical violence, whether those are challenges due to compromised livelihoods or what have you. And to have those be the first steps toward much broader support, and what hopefully will be transformation at some point down the road.
Yes, it's true, Paul. And the main reason is I want to point out is government channel and bureaucratic channel, or a traditional UN channel, government channel, is traditional method is very slow, and the military regime know very well the system is not effective. So they are killing time, and they use advantage based on traditional method, and the real saving life and humanitarian system is not effectively working. So that is the main reason the traditional method negative point. So as we talk, I mean, if it is not failed state, they know already the military cannot reach out beyond 2-3 miles from their base in the capital city in Burma, and they never did a good record of a civilian system. We already know there is a facts and data, a lot of evidences what Burmese military has done. And knowing that the US government, as especially liberal democracy country, we have to consider suffering of the people. A lot of churches are destroyed, a lot of Christian and Christian pastors are killed deliberately without any reason. Innocent people are killed. At least we have to prevent such things, as well as many other community, Buddhist community, Muslim community. We can reach out, everybody will reach out, even though some may not interest liberal democracy as humanitarian system. All kind of people we can assist, but we have to classify whether it is it can be a problem with US government policy, like some criminal or some against international human rights law or something. We can classify, but US should deal with intellectual people and experts from Burma, not traditional method with government to government UN system. I mean, that is the system used to be, but we should go beyond that system and to do more effective. Why not? A lot of US civil society, NGO, like your organization, many organizations some are very good record. They are doing humanitarian aid work and a lot of things. Why not U.S. can use them and let them do 100%, even U.S. government no need to do anything. Just let the people, civil society, NGO can do that.
Yeah.
Do you see
I
any
think
sign or any significant U.S. government can let the U.S. civil society or overseas civil society, example, if the organization with Burmese organization or neighboring organization, if we work with them, eastern side, a lot of nearby border area, and western side, nearby border area, India, Thailand, China. If we do all direction, we can at least over 60-70% of the humanitarian work can be done. We not necessarily we have to reach out in the middle of the country. Now government to government is they just targeting the middle of the center of the country. They just want to reach first the center point. It's not necessary, So how do you see U.S. Future position?
I think you raised a number of interesting points. Maybe if I can touch on a couple of them. So one thing that's happening that I'm hopeful about, that you can see the language being picked up across the international community, not just here in the United States, is there's this drumbeat around localization. And I think that this has come and kind of is a little bit cyclical, where it's kind of in vogue to talk about trying to find local partners to work with and to build their capacity, and then that's not discussed quite as much for a while, and then it resurfaces. I think the difference that I'm seeing now is that people are looking for ways to really, in English, we would say, talk about putting teeth into something. So like, how can we actually try and enforce this idea of localization? How can we hold governments, implementers accountable to trying to achieve some of the goals that are within the localization agenda? And so I think that there may be some hope in the midterm there for those civil society organizations that still exist, whether they are kind of formally recognized or whether they're underground right now, that are there in Burma. I think another couple of pieces that you raise, and one is, in recognition of one of the things that the regime does very well there. I was constantly amazed at how effective they were at slowing any engagement, whether it was positive, negative, or completely neutral. And they really were able to operate on their own time and control things. I think in most countries, they have some influence, obviously, but there's also a desire to kind of move forward. And I think the regime has seen so little benefits to changes to the status quo that they have mastered kind of the bureaucratic processes of being able to slow things down. While occasionally I think it can be helpful to be more thoughtful and methodical and recognize the international community has made a lot of mistakes by moving too quickly, sometimes it's good to have some sense of urgency, especially when dealing with issues of humanitarian assistance. I also think that here in the West or the global North, and I hear it a little bit in your language too, there tends to be a lot of focus on humanitarian assistance, and that obviously is a priority for the people that are hungry or without shelter, maybe aren't receiving adequate health care, and I know that's been a challenge for decades there. But at the same time, I worry sometimes when that becomes the pure focus, because if all you do is focus on humanitarian assistance, then to me, it's kind of the equivalent of putting a Band-Aid on a big gaping wound, and you're not ever really able to start healing. You're just treating whatever the symptom might be. And I think I'm not trying to discourage the need and the attention that goes toward humanitarian assistance. I just hope that both within the conversations that are taking place internally and the conversations that are taking place externally, that there is a recognition that we have to move beyond the immediate response and look for ways that we can start to transition or transform the dynamics into that liberal democracy that you were talking about, where people's rights are respected, where they feel safe and secure in their homes, where there isn't discussion around failed states and things like that. And then the other piece that I can share that was a real hope of mine in the past, and I've been really discouraged about, is I think that there was a lot of energy that surfaced within the last probably 15 to 20 years, if you look at the real origins, and then as you look at kind of the impact on policy within the last decade around this idea of responsibility to protect. And that got a lot of lip service from national leaders, from international NGOs, from the UN, et cetera, and that was institutionalized in a number of different bodies. However, I think if you look at the track record of the international community, we've really fallen short on our ability to deliver there. And I think you can look at the people, whether you're talking about the Chin, the Rakhine, the Burmese, whomever, that we've really failed to be able to ensure that protection, and I'm really heartbroken for that. And I hope, as you were talking earlier, that people are really looking at this through innovative approaches that are looking, can we come in from the borders? Can we drop goats from the sky in order to help people eat, or whatever those questions need to be that can help transform the thinking to provide support that's needed.
Right. I wish U.S. government should increase assistance, and in spite of crisis, the assistance is reduced. It should be increased.